everyone, I'm Allie Buchman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to do a video for you today that was second place in our Potomac Bead Company 2016 challenge. This is Marissa Vallejo's design, RounDuo Daisy bracelet, and I've made a little bit of a modification by adding some 15s in the center just to make the RounDuos pop a little bit more. But pretty much other than that, it is the exact same. I have a couple of the components made already here because you do kind of build on the bracelet. I'll show you how to do the beginning, and then I'll show you how to do the end as well. If you need any of the materials here for Marissa's bracelet, you can go to the left-hand side here. We'll do a little drop down with the different materials that you need. You also can visit your local Potomac Bead Company store or shop with us online if you need any of these materials. Also, always below the video, there's a little description, and it says to show more, whether or not you need some extra details. And there we usually list and have links to all the different products as well. Marissa used her highlighted bead as kind of the RounDuo here right in the center. And for my RounDuo bead, I'm using the white shimmer color. It almost looks like a little pearl. And highlighting then the RounDuos are some super duos. There's two different colors used here, and there are 14 of one color per component, and then the other, 12 of one color per component, and then there are 6 of the other color. For the main color, the green color, I am using the Jade Dark Travertine, and then for the lighter color, the purple color, it's White Pastel Burgundy in the Super Duo. You could also, a cool idea, and I was going to do this, but then I forgot about it, was to do each one a different color. Also, if you do them in an actual daisy color, that would look really pretty as well. I wanted to do different colors in case any of you search for her video or for her picture. It'll give you 2 different color options as well. In addition to that, I have 2 11-0s that I'm using and 1 15, and then on the sides I'm just using some Potomac Crystal Rondelles in 3x4. The Potomac Crystal Rondelles I'm using are Crystal AB, and the seed beads for the 11-0 that I'm using are the matte metallic mix, that crystal metallic mix, and then also the crystal brown rainbow, both of which are Mayuki seed beads but have the check coating on them. And then the 15-0 that I've chosen to use in the middle to highlight a little bit is the dyed transparent wine 15-0, and that's a Mayuki color. I'm going to close off the whole bracelet with a magic wine cup button. And I'm stringing on some gray wildfire, which is one of the new colors, and I'm liking that a lot. So I'm going to continue on with the gray wildfire. I am using a size 10 needle, and I'm working here on my bead on it board. If you like to glue and you want a little glue, you can have that handy. I'm using some super new glue. And then as always, I have one of my thread burners near me. This is the Thread Zap 2 that I have laying near me. To get started, we are going to make the first component. So we're going to do one whole component, and then it kind of builds on like a chain. I'm going to go back and add these 4 components. We're going to do 7 in total, and we're going to start off with 1 component. We start the bracelet, which has a little bit of a curvature, you can see here, in the middle with our RounDuo. I have about 3 feet or 30 inches approximately between that and 36 of my thread, and I have a stop bead that I've put on the thread. The stop bead is just a bead to keep the beads from falling off right now and will eventually come off. I put it onto my needle and then go through it 2 times, going away from the tail, which is about 2 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my RounDuo bead. If you're not familiar with the RounDuo, it's a 2-hole bead that's 5 millimeters, and we're going to put that right in the center of our little daisy component here. Let that drop down to the stop bead, and then I'm going to pick up 3 of my 15-0 seed beads. I'm going to put my needle and thread through the second hole of the RounDuo with my needle going back towards the stop bead. That's going to put those 3 beads right there on the side of the RounDuo bead. When I'm coming out the side here, I'm going to add 6 beads, and these are my 15-0s. And then sew through that same hole that I'm coming out of, going around in a circle, again with the needle coming back towards the stop bead side. Out the first hole there of the round duo next to the stop bead, 3 more 15s go on, and I go through the second hole of the round duo. So really what I'm just doing is decorating the outside edge of the round duo, and this helps so you don't see a lot of thread in the middle next to the super duos. If you've done the bezel beauty with me, this is very similar to that as well. When I get to this side again here, 6 more 15-0s go on, and I'm sewing back through the hole that I'm coming out of, going around in a circle. And you can see I'm just kind of pinching that stop bead to the back of the project. Once I have all those, you can see they don't sit super nice next to my round duo bead. So what I'm going to do is, with my needle coming out right there at the end, I'm going to sew completely around through all of these 15s. And that's going to make that 15 chain more rounded. And again, you don't have to do this. You can have the middle exposed like Marissa did, and if you want to do that, you can check out her picture in our beading and jewelry making group on Facebook and look and see what it looks like without the 15s. So if you don't want the 15s in the middle, you will see a little bit of thread between the round duo and the super duo beads. So in that case, you're just going to skip this step. As I come to the end here of going the whole way around, I'm going to come out of a 15 right next to one of my holes of my round duo beads. Give a nice tight pull, and I'm going to go through that one hole of my round duo bead. So I'm going through the round duos, and I'm staying to one side, to the side without the stop bead of that round duo bead. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing, but instead of adding the C beads, we're going to be adding the super duos. I'm going to put 2 super duos on, and then I'm going to reverse and come down that second hole of the round duo bead. Again, staying to the top of those 15s. Pull the super duos in so they're sitting on a V. When you're to the other side, we're going to put on 4 more super duos. So back through the same hole that we're coming out of, again staying to the same side of those 15s, almost forcing them to the top of that round duo bead. When I'm out that hole there, 2 more beads go on and through the other hole of the round duo bead. Force those 2 beads to sit correctly there. And then 4 more of my super duos go on. Sewing back through the hole that I'm coming out of. And that's going to complete doing the same exact pattern that I did with the 15-0s. That's going to complete my super duo ring. So you can see the super duos are kind of sitting funny here. If you look on the other side, they sit off the round duo a little bit. That's why I put those 15s there. But I'm going to do the same thing that we did with the 15s and reinforce the loop that I just made by sewing around in a circle the whole way through that first hole closest to the round duo of all those super duos. You could also do this with mini duos. The counts would just be a little bit different, but if any of you guys want to do a little bit of a different look and have the round duo stick out more, you could do that. So I'm sewing the whole way around here through that first hole that I went through of the super duo beads. So I haven't gone through the second hole at all of the super duos. Give a nice tight pull when you realize that you've gone the whole way around. And you can see they're sitting a lot nicer now on the round duo, just like we did with the 15-0s and sewed around them. The super duos are sitting nicer as well. When you go the whole way around the interior circle or the first hole of the super duos, you're going to be coming out one of the first holes at the bottom closest to the round duo. To increase and to do my next portion and my next little row here of the daisy, I'm going to come from that bottom hole of one of the super duos to the top hole, sewing in the opposite direction, which is going to put a little bit of thread there as I pull slowly so you can see exposed on the side of the super duo. We now get to add our second color of our super duos, and this is that white pastel burgundy. And we're going to be adding 6 of those. We're adding one of the pastel burgundies in between each of our super duos for every other bead. We have a super duo that we added, and we're going to add an 11-0 in that metallic color. Then my next one is a super duo, sewing through that second hole of the travertine, and then a 15 or 11-0. So you can see the pattern is very simple here for this row. It's just one super duo and then one 11, and sewing right onto the next bead. And you want to make sure that your thread is not twisted at all as you're doing this, and that you're pulling nice and tight. Because you want that curvature, you do want that tension, because it does sit up a little bit. You can see I'm just going the whole way around, adding my super duos in between the 11s. As you get back to the start now, I have my last 11 that I'm going to put in. And if you need to, you can lay your beads out in piles. So if you lay out here your 6 super duos, you know when you have the last one on. I'm going to go through the last of my jade travertine bead there, go through the first of that pastel burgundy super duo that I put on through that first hole. Once you're through the first hole, just like we did on the first row of our super duos, we're going to step up by coming out of that first hole of that super duo. We're going to go through the second hole, coming back in the opposite direction, which again exposes a little bit of thread there right on the side. As we come out that second hole, we're going to add our last row of our component. To add the last row of component, the pattern is going to be 15-0, 11-0 crystal, 11, 15, and through the super duo. That happens twice, and then we put on a round duo. The round duo are acting as links between the project. On one side of this first component, we're also going to add our button end from the loop. So when I'm coming out here of my second hole of my burgundy super duo, I'm going to add an 11-0, one of my round duos, and an 11-0. The 11-0s that I've chosen to use here on the sides are still that metallic. And grab out your crystals. And each component has 4 crystals in it. Marissa used we used 4mm Swarovskis and then just some 8/0s next to them, so that's also an option. In between the next set of our super duo bead goes a 15, that brown rainbow, my crystal, brown rainbow, 15. And I'm sewing through that next hole of my super duo. And you can see that curvature kind of starting to happen. Again, 15, 11, crystal, 11, 15, and sew through the next burgundy super duo. When you get to the other side here, this is going to be the bracelet that's going to add on to the components. We'll link the next 2 together. On this one here, I want to actually go ahead and do my clasp or my closure and add my cup button. So I'm going to add my 11s and then my round duos, and we're adding one of our round duo and I'm going to add another 11. Sew through the next pastel burgundy. Continue on with the crystal pattern. Sew through that burgundy, and then one more time with that 15-11 crystal pattern. As I come back around to that first RounDuo bead, I'm going to sew back through this entire component. Because it does arch up, it gives it a much nicer, tighter curvature if you sew back through the entire project and pull nice and tight as you're doing it. As I'm sewing back and kind of reinforcing, I'm going to put on my first end then. I'm going to sew through that second RounDuo that I put on, through the 11-0 and out the RounDuo. On the side of the RounDuo, 3 15-0s get added, and I'm sewing from the first hole to the second hole of that RounDuo bead. And those 3 15-0s are just going to decorate the side. When I'm coming out that second hole of the RounDuo bead, I'm going to add my that brassy color, the metallic mix. I'm adding 2 beads, then one of my crystals, and then about 2 more beads. I'm just getting excited and doing my loop. That's going to create the button area. So I'm putting on my cup button then. In the middle of the cup button, I'll decorate it with one of my super duos, so I have that green color. And I'm going to go from the one hole of the cup button to the other hole, going through that super duo and coming out the bottom. When I'm out the super duo here at the bottom, or when I'm out the, the cup button here at the bottom, 2 more of my 11-0s go on. Sew through the crystal, and that's going to create a little V. Coming out the crystal then, 2 more seed beads go on, and I'm going to sew back through that RounDuo bead, which is going to close off and connect to that whole clasp. So you can see you created almost an X pattern. Going back through them, I'm going to reinforce my clasp, going through the whole thing one more time. Giving a nice tight pull as you come out of each different bead. Once you're out the base of the crystal, you want to make sure that you're coming down the 11-0s on the opposite side that you started up. I'm then going to sew back through that RounDuo again. And when I'm on the side of the RounDuo, I'm going to add those 3 15s as my decoration. Sewing through the RounDuo bead now. I'm also going to sew through, if you flip it over the back here, you can see, I'm going to sew through that 11-0 and continue reinforcing this component. So we stopped basically halfway during the reinforcing, added the clasp, and we're going to keep going. As we add each component forward, you don't need to add the clasp, so you'll just have an open hole in your RounDuo, much like you did the first one. Each bead component for this daisy bracelet then that gets added on to the previous one that was created. To get rid of your threads, because we're going to finish this thread off after a nice tight pull, I'm going to sew my needle and thread back into my project from the back side, going through to the other side of the RounDuo and going through the super duo, snaking the skin then, or snaking the thread then back through, going through the bottom hole and the next super duo, bringing your needle out, which sometimes can take a little finagling. And I'm sewing my thread back through on the side of the super duos back to the middle. I'm then going to slide my stop bead out and force that thread to the bottom of my project. When I force that thread to the bottom of the project then, and if you need to, you may need to put a needle on there, I'm going to tie off the two ends together. When you tie off the two ends and you get them down, you'll have a little space inside one of the components that has a knot there. That knot then, I did a little dab of glue and burned down the edges. Once I do that, I'm going to get ready with my needle and thread with another about 30 inches of thread, or 25 inches of thread or so, to do my next component. I'm now to the point of making my second one where I did my beads, and then I did my row of my jade dark travertine, and then I did my row of my alternating with the pastel and the metallic. And now I'm going in to do my outer row that has the crystals and the round duos. Because I had to learn this before teaching it to you guys, I did a section of 4 here that I'm going to be adding on to the first one that I created with the end, and then the second one that I'm building. And it'll also give you an idea how you can do this as components if you wanted to do a necklace or earrings as well. When I'm here coming out of my Super Duo bead, the first thing I'm going to do is add my little 1511 crystal series and sew through the next bead there, that next pastel burgundy. Next, I'm going to do that again, doing my rotation here. And then as I come around to a portion where I'm going to put my round duo bead, what I'm going to do is my 11-0 in my metallic color. I'm then sewing into the round duo that has the open hole from the very first component that we just made. Coming out of that, I add another one of my 11-0 seed beads and continue on through my next super duo. You can see that fits in there right nice. You can see that this one is laying down. When we go through and we do a second time around the outer edge, that's really going to pull that up. Again, we just continue on with our crystals, doing our 15 and then 11 in our crystal. And then as we come around, we'll add in the next round duo bead. So I'm coming around here to my last of my open areas. Push that stop bead kind of out of the way. And when I'm at this last opening here, I add my 11-0 in my metallic color. I'm going to join it to my round duo group that was already here. If I wasn't joining it and I didn't have another component already made, I would just simply add another round duo bead like we did the first time around, and just the second hole will stay empty. Because I'm adding the two together, I'm going to add it to the previous round duo, an 11-0, and now I'm going to pull this up and reinforce this whole outer edge to tighten it up and get my curvature. So sewing the whole way around the edge that you just did now. It also gives you an opportunity to have 2 threads going through each hole of the round duo beads, which is the connector spot, which is where you're going to get the tension for these little components. So sewing around the whole outer edge then one more time and pulling nice and tight. That's going to reinforce. The last thing I'll need to do is one more of my components to add at the end. And then much like we put on the cup button, I'm going to do a loop. Again, once you've reinforced the outside edge and you pull nice and tight, you can go into one of your super duos on the outer edge there, that pastel burgundy, and I'm going to snake back through that, exposing a little bit of thread on the sides, and snake back towards the middle. Once I have my needle and thread to the middle of the project, I'm going to force it down to the base of the bead. You can see here that first one that I was able to do. With that middle bead here, you take the stop bead off. And you're just going to take the thread and needles through one of the little empty holes right below it, pulling that then to the back as well. Get those two threads together and just tie them off. Cut some new thread and continue on with your pattern. If you want to, you can initially cut about 5 feet of thread, and that will get you multiple components then, and you can just keep that thread on the needle. So I'm going to force that thread back between the beads here, down to this base thread, tie those off, and then get ready to make my last component. So I'm on my last component, and just to show you, we're going to be picking up a RounDuo bead, and that's going to be the RounDuo that we do the loop on. And then I'm going to continue with my crystals. So this is how you would normally just add, is after you add your 2 crystals, you're going to sew on to the previous RounDuo, adding it right there, and then we're going to reinforce the whole loop coming out near the RounDuo bead in order to add our loop. Going halfway around here, having done that reinforcement, I'm coming out of the side of my RounDuo bead, that last RounDuo, and I'm going to decorate it with 3 15s and go from that first hole to the second outer hole. Once I'm out that second outer hole, I'm going to repeat just like I did on this side, adding 2 of my 11s, then 1 of my crystals, and then a bunch of my 11s. This is a great way to clean up your bead mat. About 25 of these will do the trick. You need the loop to fit around your button and not be too loose. You can see I kind of use this opportunity, I'm off screen here, to really clean up my bead mat, collecting all of those beads and separating out the 2 colors that I used. This is my opportunity to do that. Once you get all your seed beads on for your loop then, we are going to reinforce that and continue on to the opposite side and reinforce that loop one more time and tie off our last component. So you need to pour a couple more out. If you wanted to use 15s on the end there, you could as well. The little red marks here from my bead mat, on my bead mat, are just some of that travertine coating that's in the middle of the Super Duo beads coming off. If you do happen to get some of that on your bead mat, you can just take a baby wipe or just a tiny bit of a damp cloth and get that off that way. I have lots of baby wipes sitting around, so that works for me. Once you have your 25 or so on, you're going to come down through the crystal back towards the project, making your loop. A good idea before you actually finish off the loop is just making sure that your button fits nicely in there. Add 2 more of your 11Os, and you're going to sew through the RounDuo bead, that second hole that you're already coming out of. Off camera there, while I had an ambulance going by, I went through and I reinforced that loop for the cup button. I'm then going to come back through the RounDuo, just like we did when we were putting the button on. When I get to the side of that RounDuo, I'm going to decorate it with my 3 15s, and then I'm going to continue back down and create that reinforcement of my component here on the sides. Once I get the whole way around the component piece, I'm then going to do like I've done each one, forcing the needle and thread back towards the center, pulling the stop bead off and just tucking that middle thread back down towards the middle and tying it off. Once I do have all of those tied off, then I'll come back with some super new glue and just get a little bit on each of the knots that I created at the back of the project. After that, then I go ahead and burn down all of my thread ends. As you can see here, I'm through that Super Duo, and I'm going to turn it around then and wiggle my way back through my component. If you need to, you can also bring the needle out towards the front of the component and then just push it back towards the back, taking it from front to back. That sometimes is easier than trying to get it to come out on the back side. So if you go through your round or your super duo there, you can come out on the top, wiggle that through, and then I'm just going to push it down towards the bottom as I go through. Getting those threads, then I'm going to take the stop bead off, force that thread down in between those super duos, and just tie off my knot. After you've got all your knots tied and a little bit of glue, you can burn all those threads down. Show you the back here in the side profile, how that sits up a little bit. And you have a nice, lovely little bracelet. To give you an idea, this bracelet with the 7 components is about 7¼ long. So actually, if it was for me, I would have kept one of the components off and just done 6 components, done it about 6¾ inch long. So just to give you an idea on how many beads you need again, so it's 12 of the one and 6 of each for the different components. And you can do that math depending on the size that you need it to be. This also, as I turn in here, you can see what it would look like as a necklace, which would be very pretty. You could even build more components off the bottom here too. I want to thank everyone that had entered the Potomac Bead Company Challenge of 2016, and thank Marissa Vallejo a lot for her beautiful daisy design here. You can watch some of the other videos as well as we upload them, and stay tuned for the different YouTube videos, whether or not it's the design challenge patterns, ones that we come up with our own, or product reviews, all such things. You can get regular updates if you subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you need any of these materials, you can go back to the beginning of the page, or again, you can go underneath here to the description and kind of that show more button. If you need any of the materials, you can shop with me online at PotomacBeads.com, or you can go to one of our lovely Potomac Bead Company locations and you can check out where those are at PotomacBeads.com as well. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and if you want to check out the design that Marissa did, her winning design, you can check that out by joining our Facebook group, which is Beading and Jewelry Making. Ask for admission to that and become a member to that group, and you can share your different designs, get ideas, and interact with other great designers like Marissa here. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and have fun making the RounDuo Daisy bracelet.